A bald guy who positively reviews wrestling shows on the internet. Sounds rubbish, right? That's life. Sometimes you can write things down on paper and they shouldn't work, yet somehow they take off. It's been this way with wrestling for years too, an idea which should be horrible clicks and becomes awesome. So I am Simon Miller, welcome my friends. Let's run down 10 of these right now. Number 10, the Stooges. So let's get two legendary old-timers and have them play idiots next to Vince McMahon. I'm sure some people were livid when they first heard this. The secret sauce was how Patterson and Gerald Brisco approached the role though. There was no ego, there was no second guessing. They threw themselves into it with so much gusto, it was hilarious. They were essentially jesters, they took bumps for anyone and everyone, and they even fell out from time to time. Plus there was that mini feud with the Mean Street Posse. This was just good stuff. It worked too as the fans gravitated towards it after a while. Good is good. And in terms of making yourself work in a different era, boom! This is the way. Number 9, Mandy Rose goes to NXT. This was seen as a demotion at first, but no. If anything, Mandy Rose opened the door to prove going back to NXT can serve as the best career resurgence. This was July 2021 and Mandy had been doing okay on the main roster. WWE had sort of pigeonholed her, and the story with Otis had run out of steam mostly due to the pandemic. Couldn't pay it off properly. As soon as Rose returned to the third brand though, it just worked. Not only did she improve in the ring and on the mic, she totally updated her character. What was the end result? A huge NXT women's title run that everybody thought was pretty damn good. Rose also had the group Toxic Attraction, which helped others along the way, and of course the only reason this ended was due to the company and Mandy falling out over her outside activities. Looking back now though, there was nothing readily available for her on Raw or SmackDown, so she bet on herself, and it was the perfect shift. More wrestlers who need something new should do this. Again, it just showed us a different way. Number 8, Ted DiBiase finds The Undertaker. So this didn't really play out on TV the way it was meant to, or at least the SummerSlam 1994 main event missed the mark. I get that, but people forget this. I still love it because I was basically a fetus when I first witnessed this. 2 Undertakers was the best thing ever. If we go to the Bruce Pritchard podcast though, he claims when this story started, it was meant to be Ted DiBiase going out there and finding a darker version of the dead man. It was just a bit odd, he was pretty damn dark. So when the WWF pivoted and said that actually the $1 Million Man believed his own hype and riches so much that he could convert someone to become an even better phenom, yeah, that works. It's actually more layered. It means multiple people had a stake in this. It was essentially telling you that Ted was drunk on power, so much so he truly thought after the OG Undertaker had turned his back, he could just manipulate a new one. It just summed up what he did throughout his World Wrestling Federation career. Money will get you anything. Again, this doesn't really come across when you go back and check it out, but this was the concept. Not so bad when you do it that way. I mean, it doesn't explain why Leslie Nielsen was trying to sort this come SummerSlam. The WWF was just a bit weird back then. Number 7, Drew McIntyre fails in Wales. You need everything that happened afterwards to make this work, but hey, it did happen. Whether WWE planned it or retconned it, it doesn't matter. Nowadays, it feels like a home run. But some people, very understandably, were livid that Drew McIntyre failed to beat Roman Reigns at Clash of the Castle 2022. It seemed so obvious given we were in his fake hometown of Wales, but no. WWE decided to expand the bloodline as Solo Sikoa made his main roster debut, and the rest is history. Look at it now, though. This was the catalyst for the Scottish Warrior starting to lose his mind, as despite constant screw jobs, nobody cares. If that's how things were gonna be, he would take matters into his own hands, as he became the best version of himself ever. He hit some career highs. Without this and other sad moments, he wouldn't have the justification needed to become the ultimate Drew McIntyre. That's way better than an admittedly cool title win, which likely would have been over a few weeks after pulling the trigger. It also opened the door for this excellent feud with CM Punk, so bravo all round. This has been some top tier storytelling from WWE and Drew, and it can kind of all be traced back to here. No idea if it was meant to happen, but it's still a pat on the back for those that were involved. You can only use what you have, and yeah, you used it and then some. Number 6, Drew McIntyre fails in Scotland, which helped here too. It's like a story in 2 acts. This one is arguably more controversial because Drew had become his final form by this stage, and he could have won the world title. Nobody would have blinked. Instead, not only did we hark back to the first Clash of the Castle, we made it 10 times more painful, as McIntyre was screwed again, this time by CM Punk. It was even more hard-hitting here too, we were in Drew's proper hometown. Look where we got to, though. Would we have bought into the Punk McIntyre Hell in a Cell as much without these beats? I don't think so. There's a reason WWE brought back the Bad Blood name. It's because Triple H knew he had this feud in his pocket, ticked all the boxes. To get there, though, we had to introduce proper Rage, which is why McIntyre got ruined here, and CM Punk kept getting ruined in Chicago. Doesn't take a genius. We just went the most obvious and emotional route. I suppose the best part is the trust you can now have in WWE storytelling. They do know where they're going, and you'll get that payoff. As awful as it sounds to say, we can just sit back and enjoy the ride. For once, they may actually be telling the truth. Finally. Number 5, Eric Bischoff gives Triple H the new world title. I do get if this one still annoys you. We certainly could have done more, and Triple H just getting a brand new world championship made it feel less important at first. It's just how it works. This was September 2002, and fans were livid at the game for what they deemed to be ruling Raw with an iron fist, which is why the then WWE did this. Just go and watch any Triple H promo after the fact. He didn't shy away from it. He mentioned it over and over to piss the audience off even more. It worked. He was grinning right in the face of the haters. So the mistake part in this actually comes from the fact that nobody came in to wreck Hunter, which is what Booker T should have done a few months later. But the idea of an asshole getting a freebie and reveling in it, that's old school wrestling story. We just forgot the last part. RVD, Shawn Michaels, and Goldberg were all in his position too to ram it back down Triple H's throat, but yeah. This is where it does get a little bit messy. In terms of going to it to begin with, however, I think it would have been fine. Two bad people just doing bad things. Number 4, Hulk Hogan's WrestleMania 9 win. So you will never get me on board with this. It was stupid then, and it's even more stupid now. While I'm sure Hogan was also begging Vince McMahon to let him walk out after the Mania 9 main event to win the world title from Yokozuna, McMahon could have said no. He didn't. Ultimately, this was his choice. If we go back to this idea on paper too, sure, I get it. The WWF needed a kick up the backside because business was not good, so why not bring back the former hero and have him shockingly become the world champion again? You can see the logic. Fans of the night loved it too because we all want to be a part of a shock, so once again, it was the fallout here which was even more awful. Hogan should have used this and his star power to help Bret Hart and Yoko reach new levels, but he did not. He went back to task and put himself first, so within days the audience was done with this. They didn't really want to go back to the 80s. It meant Vince was just buying himself some time, and he knew that too. That's why when we got to that year's King of the Ring, we undid all of this and put the title back on Zunes. And soon after, Hulk went to WCW. None of this was a fluke. If we had Hulkamania finally fall to a badass heel, the conversation around this would have been night and day. Hogan couldn't help himself though, so yeah, this was rubbish and always will be. Number 3, Cody Rhodes steps aside for The Rock. So this was not planned, it was happy happenstance, but hey, works, it works. Soon after the Royal Rumble though, winner Cody Rhodes did indeed sacrifice his world title shot against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 40, because apparently The Rock wanted first dibs. Basically how it was explained to us. It was out of Cody's hands as management had spoken, and yeah, I get it. The Rock is one of the biggest stars in the world. If you can get him on Mania, you probably should. It was still a huge shame because fans like you and me felt bad for Rhodes. He had worked his butt off for 2 years and the story investment was there. We'd all bought into this idea that now was the time to finish his story, and that's mostly because it was. Within 2 days, social media had exploded with "We Want Cody" hashtags, to the point it was obvious WWE couldn't carry on with this. The last match at Mania 40 now ran the risk of getting a reaction nobody wanted, including the great one. As such, and WWE talked about this on that YouTube documentary, they made a huge pivot, turned The Rock heel, he teamed up with Roman Reigns. The whole thing was way better than whatever we had planned. This was truly awesome stuff. It also breathed new life into Rocky, who as it turned out benefited from it all. And I think we've probably got our setup for Mania 41's main event too. The American Nightmare versus the Final Boss. That rules. There's always been a rumor out there too that before CM Punk got injured at the Royal Rumble, we were going to have the Bloodline injure Cody to the point he wouldn't have competed at Mania at all. Man, if that's true, there would have been riots. Thankfully, life stopped that too, and yeah, what we got was the best of all scenarios. So no matter how we got there, excellent stuff. We talked about for a long time, and fair play to all involved for seeing it through. They knew what they had to do. Eventually. Number 2, Steve Austin joins the Alliance. So Steve Austin going heel was a mistake all round. Fans knew this, he knew this, my nan knew this. It did give us unhinged Stone Cold, which was awesome, but in terms of a business decision, bad. There was a bizarre upside to this though, and that was in the fact that after a few months an obvious story popped up. how do we get the old rattlesnake back? WWE leaned into this, and we even had some over-the-top wonderful production videos asking that question. So when he finally did leave all of this behind, people were happy. I mean, a large part of the fan base had left by this point, so you can't say it was good. We're talking about dumb booking decisions that didn't just tank everything. This was the positive. I suppose you could argue that Austin sticking to the same course early 2001 would have resulted in a certain staleness too. I don't believe that, but Steve did. He gets wrestling way more than I do. Of course, we shall never know, but at least we had that amazing video package with Vince McMahon asking for the old Stone Cold. And if you haven't seen that, change that today. Number 1, Brock Lesnar loses in his first match back in WWE. And this was nuts. It was 2012 though, during Extreme Rules, when Brock fought John Cena in a proper violent fight and was defeated. Felt weird, especially because Lesnar had just returned from the UFC. If he's going to be in a match where anything goes, surely he has to win. No. The real reason management did this was to teach Brock a lesson for leaving all those years ago, and yes, that is stupid. That's why the Triple H feud was all over the place too. Thankfully, Lesnar had an ace in the hole, however. His name was Paul Heyman. Always happy to make lemonade from lemons, Heyman started cutting promos saying this was the worst thing that could have happened to the locker room because Brock was even more dangerous now. His pride had been wounded. We still needed the Undertaker win at WrestleMania 30 to turn him into this beast, which is a hill I'll die on, but again, if WWE was always going to have Lesnar lose day one, this was exactly the way to sort it out after the fact. Sometimes, though, maybe just don't make it so hard and have the dude you want to push win a lot of matches. Know of any other silly bookings that somehow worked out that WWE has done over the years? Make sure you let us know in the comments below before you like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Make sure you turn on all those notifications, especially for the mobile app too, and click the video on the screen. But otherwise, my friends, make sure you have a terrific day, and I will talk to you again soon.